Welcome to today's episode of CLCI Live, brought to you by the award-winning and ICF accredited school, Certified Life Coach Institute. Sit back, relax, and enjoy today's episode.
Hello, everybody. Before we begin, let's remind everyone to join in the conversation. We want to hear from you. So leave comments, all of that good stuff. We would absolutely love to hear from you. And we are going to, and we're monitoring the comments. Also, share, like, subscribe. Do it now. We need your support. It's the only way we know that you appreciate what we're doing is by pressing that subscribe button. So please do, and share this with anybody who you think might find it relevant, which is everybody. Because this is coaching skills for non-coaches, which is
what's a non-coach?
Yeah, what is a non-coach?
Not me.
Humans. But I mean, coaches are humans too, but these are humans who actually don't coach.
Coaches are humans too.
A more evolved and refined human being, but humans nonetheless.
So we've sort of said what we're talking about today, right? Hi, Steve. Welcome in.
Steve.
We are talking about exactly what we just said, which is coaching skills for non-coaches. So what we did, everybody had homework. We asked for everybody to prep some skills. You all have to monitor, Anthony, the comments, the comments, because I'm going to have the captions up. So
yeah, I'm looking.
Who do we want to go first? Who wants to? So we've all got some coaching skills locked and loaded that we're going to share, and I just want to see who wants to volunteer to go first. It won't be me because I have some business to do before we get to that point. So
I'll start with the small potatoes, since I'm the only one here without a credential. But
You are certified though.
that is true.
He's certifiable too.
Certifiable. I can grab my certificate somewhere. But yeah,
And he's the youngest of all of us, so he should go first.
Yeah.
Starting with the youngest. So to be more specific, we're talking about coaching skills that we use in our day-to-day lives that are not in the coaching session. We learn them and we use them in our coaching sessions, but we also use them outside the coaching session. The one I like, one of two, is the SMART goals. And Brooke, I do remember what SMART goals stands for. It's specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timely, or time-bound, I think.
Very good, Anthony. Wonderful
And I
job.
definitely was not looking at it on my computer while I was saying it.
It did actually look like you were looking at it, but we'll
I
let
was.
that slide.
Yeah. But the SMART goals, thank you, Steve, for the happy birthday. SMART goals I use all the time when talking to people, or when people are talking at me and they're telling me their problems or the things they want to achieve. Like, I get to pick and choose. Do I want to try to get them to be more specific? Do I want to ask them when they're going to get this done? Do I want to harass them into seeing if it's even attainable? These are all
Harass them. Oh
Yes.
my God.
that's
Your
my
language sometimes.
mode. That's my mode of conversation is
Oh my
harassing, criticizing,
Yeah.
girl bossing, gaslighting, things like that. But the SMART goals are very effective because people who are not in the business world, I'll say, or like corporate world, they don't really know what SMART goals are. So it's like new and exciting territory for them to start asking those smart questions. The second one is asking the question, how does that serve you? I had a friend recently who was telling me about behavior that he doesn't like doing. I'm not going to be too specific. And he wants to be a different person. But he keeps on getting in this cycle of this behavior, and I've asked him, like, how does that serve you? How is that beneficial to you? And he'll say, it's not beneficial to me. Like, then why are you doing it? It's serving you in some capacity, and that question causes people to very much stop and think about what it is they're doing and why it is they're doing, and then they can reinterpret their behavior.
That's really cool that you've done that. That how does it serve you? They think it's a negative connotation, and it's not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because people's immediate reactions are, "It doesn't serve me. I don't want this to serve me. I'm a better person who should not be doing this thing." But when it really comes down to it, our behavior serves us in some way, even if it's not for our parents' benefit. There, I'm done with show and tell, Brooke.
Well, I just want to say to the last point you made, Anthony, I mean, the challenge with that question is you have to make sure you have that connection and that relationship with your friend, family member, whoever it is, because people can get very defensive. Like, what are you talking about? That's what I'm telling you. It doesn't serve me. That's why I'm trying to change what I need to do. So really kind of, some people can really get defensive and taken aback by that question. And so being able to preface that question with, this isn't meant to be, digging at you or anything. It's just another way to look at what's going on for you.
I mean, unless you have that kind of relationship with somebody and then you're like, no, I am trying to.
Brooke knows that my friendships are very antagonistic towards each other. So when I say, how does it serve you? I'm like, I'm making it more palatable for a live audience.
Because it does.
Yeah, go on, Dan.
Oh, that question does bring up like either the short-term payoff that's taking them away, that the sabotage that's taking them away from the long-term, or the idea of the secondary payoff of what's the real reason you're doing it.
Well, there's many times that I've used that question. And of course, like we've said here, the first answer is it doesn't. But in some fashion, when you think about the choice to go down that path, it has served you in some way. And that hasn't been a bad thing. We've all grown up to be who we are, and there's some reason that we're still using a pattern. How and what way does it serve you? And determining the difference between it doesn't and it does can allow for a possible growth place where you can use that piece on purpose now. It doesn't just show up arbitrarily or our ego get in the way. It does then serve a purpose versus just letting it have its free reign. It's being able, I guess you could say, taking the rein versus letting the horses run free. Taking the rein allows us to navigate in a way that's beneficial. Letting the horses go, we're going to get fallen off that wagon pretty quick.
Yeah. And for those of you just joining us, we're talking about how we can use some of the things we use in coaching in the other part of our live.
Is it called the real world or just kidding?
Any part of the world other than our coaching time. Where people,
Coaching outside of the coaching container.
That's right. Coaching outside the coaching container. That's good.
Because we use these things. We are coaches, and so we use these tools when we're not in the coaching container. Really, is with that. So I think that's a fair description of what this might be. I also think that you had a really good point there, Lisa. Is one of the immediate things we jump to is that feeling like there's a negative connotation or insinuation when it comes to how is this serving you, but that, like you mentioned, it served you, so it's had a purpose, and what you're recognizing is probably a shift or a growth in you because you're realizing that it may no longer be something a tool you want to utilize in your life. And so that doesn't have to be a negative thing. It's a sign of growth. It's a sign of a desire for growth. It's a sign of desire for change. And that's actually a really cool space to be in. And being asked a question like that can sort of bring a plan to how to sort of make that change and really sort of get those wheels spinning inside our heads that we might otherwise not think of it that way, right? Sometimes we just think, no, this is just how I react. This is what I do. But the truth of the matter is we don't have to. We're in charge of how we react to things. So that question sort of brings this awareness that to our behaviors and the reasons we do the things we do. So I think it's a very powerful tool.
kind of emotional intelligence. If we're going to get down to the nitty gritty, that's what we're talking about, emotional intelligence.
Joy and Success asks, are there circumstances where keeping on the coaching hat can be detrimental or less effective than proceeding differently? There are times where if people know that you're a coach and you start coaching at them, they're going to say, stop coaching me.
I can think of Anthony doing that to me a few times.
I mean, if you know what coaching is and then you see somebody coaching towards you and like it's not in the frame of a coaching session, you might be like, stop it. I see what you're doing. I'll do the work myself.
But oh my goodness, we are very curious and want to know, and we don't want to step on your toes to coach you.
I have a funny story. And not everybody will be able to appreciate it as much as us in this room. Those of you listening, I'll just fill you in a little bit. So my son has been through CLCI and did level 1 and level 2. And I've been coaching for 4 years, and I often ask him coaching questions. But since completing the courses, he had said something to me in text message, and I sent back a text with a question. He said, I see what you're doing there.
Now he knows.
A little
he knows and can identify when I'm in coaching mode. But because I use it carefully and sparingly, I still have my relationship that is important, but I also will tend to weave in a couple times a coaching question, because it's all about really letting the other person have their experience, right? I don't need to take it away. I don't need to all of a sudden fix or blame or complain or whatever, or shame. So I think that's the safe space there when we're talking about, like, if you continue to use the coaching, well, you'll feel it. You start to feel when there are appropriate times to use it and when you might not.
I just imagine like two coaches passive aggressively coaching each other. Instead of arguing, they're just asking each other open-ended questions.
Tell me more about that, Anthony.
Yeah, exactly.
How does that question serve you, Dan?
I'm wondering what's the idea behind you asking me that?
How important?
I'm just gonna hold the silence on that one.
I think that there was a couple words that are really important that came up in there. Hi, Sue. We said sparingly. So I think, if we mix in one little thing here and there, it's one thing. If we're laying it on thick, it becomes fairly obvious, right? The other thing too, I think with that regard to that is you can always ask, like, how do you want me to show up in this situation? What do you want? Do you want me to be co-signing your BS? Do you want me to just be listening? Do you want me to be coaching you? How do you want me to show up in this situation for you?
Or two, are you looking for the answer to like a question and some actual actionable advice?
Yeah.
Sometimes people, they don't want to, own their own success. You have information I need, and I need an answer quickly, Brooke. So stop coaching me. Give me some answers. I need them.
So I wanted to go back to, so we were talking about the question, how does this benefit you? And I kind of wanted to give a small example in case there are people that aren't like understanding that. So for a long time, I would pretty much like say I ask or say that I wanted something to be done, and I wouldn't wait, and then I would just do it myself, right? So my impatience or my control was like, I'll just get it done. And how that was serving me was that things would get done, right? But when I started to stop doing that and kind of let people do it their way and not control it so much, I had so much more free time on my hands. And so when we ask that question, well, how does doing things you want other people to do benefit you? That positive benefit is that it gets done, and it gets done the way I like it. But then the other way is how it's not serving me is that I'm exhausted, I'm tired, I'm depleted, I'm spending my energy here, there, and everywhere for other people and not for me. And so when we ask that question of our friends, like out of the coaching realm, which is what we're talking about today, it's this opportunity to have a friend think about, why are you still doing this behavior, without the judgment?
Or even possibly pick and choose the times. And I mean, you could even create like Anthony brought up SMART goal earlier, you could even make a SMART goal around it. When do I bring it up and when do I not, activate that? Yeah.
Hi, Robin.
I know. Hi,
We've been
Hi,
talking a
Sue,
whole lot.
Robin, Steve.
We've been talking a whole lot about the examples I brought. Someone else, it's time for show and tell. Brooke.
Okay. There a few things came up that already, we can go into one of mine. Which let's go. We'll hop in since you said me. But so one of the, and this kind of dovetails with a little bit with one of Dan's, and it's one of my favorites, and that is sort of harnessing creativity curiosity, like becoming a person who is genuinely curious about other people and what they're doing. And I say that this brings into one of Dan's, because Dan, there's a big piece in this that we have to talk into. So we may want to get Dan go first, and we both can go at the same time.
When I think I know which one you're talking into. Do we bring it up as the G-rated version or the R-rated version? When we get there?
R-rated version.
R-rated version. Okay. We'll do it on the tail end. I think it's you go first.
So I think one of the things that we as coaches, we can create this sort of curious spirit in our coaching sessions where we are not thinking about us, what we would do, what our thing is. What we're doing is being genuinely curious about what other people are sharing with us. And this, I think, is such a powerful tool to building relationships with people, where instead of talking about ourselves, we get really curious about what somebody is sharing with us, and we really put on this concept of wanting to know more about what somebody is sharing. So, like, if Anthony, let's go, Misha, tell me something about yourself.
Well, okay. At the moment, I was checking YouTube to see who else was on YouTube watching to accompany Steve. But when you say tell me about something about myself, I am a singer-songwriter, and I love singing music, but I don't play the guitar very well. And so since the pandemic, I had to teach myself the guitar, and it's still not very good. And I'd really love to find a guitarist.
So there are a few options of ways I can go in this conversation. I could go, wow, I've always wanted to play guitar too, and I used to sing in choir. That's so cool. Or I can put on my curious hat and I can go, oh my God, you're a singer-songwriter? What? Tell me more about, what do you do? What do you sing?
Yeah, I write my own music, and so I've been classified as kind of Americana, but I also write in French and Spanish and English, and it's kind of folk Americana, and I love it. And I'm also a social justice songwriter, so I write songs about what's going on in the world and what could be changing if we had the strength to do it.
Have you ever performed of it anywhere? I did not know this about you. I think this is genuinely super cool.
Yeah, in fact, I ended up writing almost 25 songs during the pandemic, and before then, I was in bands, and so I'm trying to get back. I've been attending. Oh, wait, no, that's Lisa. I've been attending open mics, and I'm going to be actually performing at a place in Berkeley, California, not too long from now, and yeah.
Okay, so this is so cool, right? This is the power of having a creative spirit, right? Like, I just learned, all I did was ask Misha to tell me something about herself. So immediately, a curious question, right? Open, free to go anywhere. And then I just learned something really extraordinary about her. And it became more and more extraordinary the more curious I was. And so I think this is and I could have kept going, and I would have, but we would have spent the whole time with me asking questions about her singing. So I think this is such a powerful tool for you to learn more about the people that are in your life. And I think it's such a neat thing. There was a YouTube video I watched a while ago where it was a woman in a room who she was like, anything is possible if you ask. And so she would pull somebody up and she would say,
I was just thinking about that.
Yeah, she would say, hey, what do you want? And that person would express what they want. And then, okay, well, what's stopping you? And then they would say, well, this, that, and the other. And then she would pause. And somebody in the audience would raise their hand and go, I can help with that. And all of this is born out of this creative sharing spirit where people are sharing and being curious about other people. And I think that this tool can be such a magical thing for learning about the people in your life and what's going on with them. And a big piece of this, though, that's important, and I kind of talked about it at the beginning, is this piece of being willing to not make it about you.
Yes.
And being willing to just really be curious about this other person, this other thing outside of you and outside of what's going on with you. Just genuinely being curious about somebody else, checking that ego, checking that judgment, and which is where Dan's going to come in, and just really getting in this creative and curious. It's almost, for me, I feel youthful when I do that. I don't know why. I get like excited and I feel young, like I want to ask a million questions, and I think it's such a powerful tool. So
Well, this plays in, before Dan goes, this plays into my tool, which is, 80% other person, 20% me. And so being willing to have that space or that stage, whatever you want to call it, that space where our friends, our family, our coworkers can share who they are and be celebrated and enjoyed by us. Right? Because when we start going in same story or me too, and then it's like it just bounces back to us, that's not connection. There's an opportunity for connection. Now, I will tell you, I have had friends where I ask them questions and they answer and they answer and they answer, and they never ask me a question. Those friends are no longer. Okay. So at some point it's got to be mutual, right? But I think that, there's a difference between narcissism and there's a difference between the 80-20 rule, where we get to actually explore and learn and enjoy the people in our lives. So yeah, it would have been kind of like exciting and at the same time off-putting if you, Brooke, had responded in the way that you did. Oh, I want to learn how to guitar, and that'd have been like, oh, deflation. I don't get to enjoy sharing who I am. And I got really excited when you got excited. So I just wanted to add that because that 80-20 rule is so beautiful. It doesn't mean I have to shut up, but it means that I get to participate, but I'm now letting the focus be on this other person. And I love it.
There's, and maybe you said this because I checked out for a second. I had glass splatter all over the place, but part of giving that space an invitation for that other person to share who they are is a grounding spot, I think, too. I think it's a respectful behavior because in turn, and we hope, like Misha said, with some friends she didn't get that, but in return, we get that same kind of behavior so that we are really getting into more depth of sharing who we are. That's real connection. There's too many times that people will think I'm relating to what the story is, as Brooke could have done that story. I'm relating to that, and I want to make sure I know exactly what you're talking about. And that just takes away from that whole feeling of connection.
Well, and one thing that I love about CLCI is that we have a CLCI staff fun channel. So we all get to know each other through what kinds of fun things are we doing. And I think if anybody's working for an organization, that would be such a wonderful thing to add, because we get to put in pictures or events and it doesn't take away from the work that we do. It adds to it because we're excited about what other people are doing, including newborn babies and whatever else. So.
Actually, those are billable hours that I look at. I make sure I'm on the clock when I look at that channel.
Yikes. You guys owe me a lot of money then, because I have not been
and I think this dovetails nicely. I have more tools, but I think it dovetails nicely into some of Dan's tools. So
yeah, I think I'll take the gentle on-ramp into the R-rated comment.
Okay.
And when Brooke said there were two different options, I could say, oh, I've done something similar versus tell me more about that. There's the real shift between interesting versus interested. The lens back to the other person of, oh, I've been there, I've done that, is the interesting side, but the interested of tell me more about that to really help the other person feel seen and heard. But the one that I want to come in to be able to get that information, there's a core thing that has to happen next. And who would have guessed that 3 words from the theme song of Shaft would be the thing for this? And that's shut your mouth. we keep talking on top of each other. We ask a piece of information, we pile on and pile on and pile on and not listen. And it's just like, that's a Lisa one. I remember her story about that. And it's funny, when I was talking to my wife earlier today on lunch break, when I said I'm going to be tied up, I'm going to be on this live from 4 to 5 today, and we're going to be talking on this thing. And I have my two concepts. Her first one was, yeah, keep your mouth shut. Not me, but the whole idea of learning through keeping ourselves quiet and not interjecting. We get so much that ask a question and then receive the answer and really listen to it. Or as Sam would say it, we have 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason.
For a reason.
I love that, by the way. 2 ears and 1 mouth for a reason. I love it.
And their energy has to be supporting that too. It's not, there's times that people, I'm just going to say, were speaking as I was speaking, but you could see their energy was revved up and not in the same space and not providing me that calmness, I guess, for me to complete whatever it is I needed to say. It was kind of like, hurry up, finish what you're going to say so that I can, even though they were quiet.
Yeah, I hate that feeling like somebody is waiting for you to shut up so they can talk. It's no fun. Like, it doesn't make you want to keep talking at all.
Agreed.
Which is a good skill to have if you don't want the other person to continue talking. Just hold that passive aggressive silence. Just
listening with the intent to reply. Right. We try to avoid that.
It's a good way to get people to volunteer information too, because people like to fill silence. And if you just are patient, it'll be filled with things.
Well, and I hate to say it this way, but it's also a good way to close a sale, because we take away the discomfort from us and we put it on them, and they get to decide, is this the right thing for me? If we're quiet and we just let them sit with their own thoughts and their decision, they'll say, you know what? Yeah, I really want to do this. Or, nah, I'm not ready. But we let them take on that energy. And so those of you who are in sales or whatever else, that's just another tidbit.
Well, I don't say anything on the phones. I'm just dead.
And it doesn't even have to be a sale, right? We can just, sitting in that silence can just help somebody gain some clarity as they sort of are kicking things around inside their head.
Yeah. I've learned to sit quietly on phone calls with my kids. A lot better being a coach.
Man, as a kid, and I'm thinking of that's like a high pressure moment when it's just silence on the other end from your parent.
Well, yes, unless you're used to your parent always jumping in with advice, and now all of a sudden your parent's just listening, right? I mean, it's a very different twist, right? If they're, so I mean, I found that my kids like the opportunity to process, what.
I just pictured, like I'm in trouble, and then
there has been that, but I'm not allowed to tell that story.
Sorry, are you there? But not hanging up either. Just.
What's your other one, Brooke?
I have a couple more. One of my other ones is, and it's sort of a noticing, I think, and it's a way to bring awareness to our own thought processes, and that's this an awareness around what black and white thinking is, and the use of words that are, infinite, essentially. So always, using words like never, using when those sort of things come out of our mouths, it's a very black and white concept, and we can notice it in ourselves, and we can notice it in other folks as well. And I think even asking around that it becomes a very powerful tool. So, like, you've got somebody complaining or so, and they say always, you ask around the always, and it's sort of this beginning to recognize these black and white concepts that are so prevalent in our culture, especially in an American culture and in the English language. We have just a lot of very black and white descriptions of things and words and qualifiers and quantifiers and a lot of times those qualifiers and quantifiers aren't quantifiable, and so it's like the word two. What is two? Can anybody tell me what two is? No, we have no idea what two of anything, and that means too much, too little, too old, too young. I mean, yes, there are some very defined. 21 drinking under that age is too young, right? But and older is too old, or is not is an old.
Well, it depends on the construct too, though. I lived in France, and drinking age was 16.
So yeah, exactly, but that's what I mean. There's like these weird, there's a lot of black and white concepts in our language, and a lot of lack of gray area. And what's halfway between always and never, I guess sometimes, right? Which also, that's nice, right? You sometimes do that. Feels a lot nicer than you always do that, or you never do that, right? There's some, when we adjust to a more neutral language, it's a lot less judgmental and accusatory and definitive. And I feel like when somebody defines me with a word like always or never, it's really hard for me to want to work. I either go two way. I either go, I'll show you, or I go, I'm like, well, what's the point? And it's a very defeating use of language. And so I think bringing an awareness around words like that is a very powerful coaching tool that we use with our clients, and also we can use with ourselves and also out in the world when interacting with other people. Thoughts?
That one it somewhat also dovetails into my other one of checking assumptions at the door, and rather than just running with what our definitions are of what the other person is saying, start asking into it to get understanding.
Yeah,
we don't know.
We don't know, right? Why? What is always to you? What even is, and is that always true? And not having these assumptions that maybe what somebody is sharing with us is true.
You know what assuming does, right?
I do.
It makes a beep out of you and me.
We can say ass.
We can say.
Oh, we can say ass? Okay, it makes an ass out of you and me.
It was a trick.
I like
Misha, get out of here.
But let's move over into that, unless you have any more thoughts on the black and white thinking. I think that would dovetail beautifully into Dan's check assumptions, ego, and judgment.
I'll just add, I think, that extreme thinking can really be a debilitating place for people to be, especially, our friends and family and coworkers. And so, yeah, absolutely. She's thrilled to say it. Yes, Steve, I was. I spent so many years raising kids, and it was at a certain age that I was allowed to cuss. Anyway, in the home. So I think that when I'm thinking about not only, I hear someone say that and leaning in and asking about that, to be able to ask what are some examples of when it actually has been this way or hasn't been this way. So just, again, back to that curiosity, right? Yeah.
If you're in a fight, don't use it though. Don't ask for the examples. Don't.
No, that would lead into my topic of boundaries.
Although I have like that has come up where I caught myself saying somebody always did something and I was mad, and then I've also been called on it, and it does make me check my anger or frustration, because what I have to do is step back and go, wait, okay, maybe that's not always true. And then that sort of it turns the volume down on where I'm frustrated. And then I can sort of start to work in a space that's more flexible and understanding, right? It for me is a big red flag that I'm in a sort of triggered space when I'm using words like always and never. That for me is like, that's a red flag. Okay, well, Brooke, you're probably triggered right now because that's not always true.
and some people are at that place in their life, Brooke, and some people are not. So exercise caution, everyone.
I never use those words anymore.
So Dan, let's move on over to you with your boom.
Boom, check assumptions and ego at the door. It's so easy when we're talking, and this kind of piles into all of them. The same story example. I was at the post office today shipping out something, and there were two people in front of me. I assume they knew each other. Just commiserating on who could pile on top of the other person's share how their life was worse, and it just kept but no, you won't believe what happened to me over here. It was fascinating to watch. And then like all the assumptions, they never really connected on any point at all. This one person heard some keyword that was either a glimmer or a trigger, and they ran with it, and they were a dog with a bone that wouldn't let it go, rather than just being present. And their ego, we had ego, their ego took over. I have to be more. I have to tell you how much worse my life is, or how much better my life is, rather than just being with.
Worst life ever, and you cannot.
I was at the grocery store and I heard 3 people doing the same thing you were doing, but worse.
50% increase. I love it.
Yeah, there's that. I'm not going to go into any further detail, but my experience was better.
My assumptions, were they old folks? Well, old is relative here. I am the second oldest one. They were younger than me.
Yeah. There's been I've had many of those moments where I'm sitting there and I'm like deep in a conversation where my coaching insides are like, I want to, if only they knew. Like, and I just like, okay, just let it go. Let them do what they're doing.
Let it go. Let it go.
Right.
That's the song of a coach.
Was that Spork or Marble?
Yes.
Had a cat dance.
And let's talk a minute about checking that ego and that judgment and all of that. That's kind of hard to do sometimes. So how does somebody do that in a conversation? Is there any like tips, advice, tools that you might offer up for somebody who wants to be less judgmental or less ego?
That's kind of difficult because as trained coaches, we are told and instructed to leave the ego at the door and to leave judgments at the door. Real world, we don't have that ethical obligation to do that. So it kind of
coaching's a fake world.
Yes.
It is.
It's a more structured world with certain rules of behavior for the coach, some rules of engagement. But out in the non-coaching world, there's no rules of engagement, and people's ego, or at least I can speak from my experience.
No rules of engagement. I'm going to go back to Brooks on that one.
Zero rules of engagement aside from what you are lawfully obliged to not do.
So I have a question that I tend to ask myself when I see somebody doing something that feels odd to me or unnatural or maybe even wrong. And I ask myself, what do I really know about them? And that really helps me kind of step back a little bit and kind of go, okay, wait a minute. I don't really know that person. I don't know where they came from. I don't know what they've been through. I don't know why they are doing what they're doing, but they have a reason for it. Now, obviously, if it's criminal, that's a different story. But just so, I have to ask myself that question. That's how I check myself. What do I really know about that person? I don't really know a lot about that person. So I'll just throw that in there.
You could also extend that to people you do know, because a lot of times,
absolutely.
I'm thinking of like friends and family will do things that are really confounding or really out of the ordinary, and you don't know what is going on in their head, and sometimes you just have to put aside the assumption that you know this person and just ask, be in the coaching space, what's going on? Ask those open-ended questions free of judgment, because you might think you know what's going on with somebody's life, and then they do something that's incredibly,
I see
different
that
from what you imagine.
all the time in the relationships where you're getting one side of the story, or just like one tiny sliver in a moment of the story. And I learned at a younger age not to have too much of an opinion in those situations and be a listener, because a lot of times you're only getting like 5% of the full picture, right? And the moment you start assuming and making judgments and calls about, let's say, somebody's significant other because they're frustrated in that moment, it can come back to really bite you in the butt later on when everything's fine and puppies and kittens and life is better, and they've taken the time to smooth things over, and there you are, the person who then verbally expressed all of your judgment in in that moment with this other person, and it's not a good look. And I realized too, a lot of times people aren't sharing the full picture when it comes to their relationships. They're really not. And there's an agenda, there's other things, there's that we're just not even aware of. And so I learned, and I guess it's a great coaching skill that I didn't even think of now, to just shut up and listen in those situations. Like, just shut up and listen, because anything I say is probably going to come back to bite me at some point. Be supportive, be an understanding, and just leave it at that.
Providing grace in that space, because oftentimes what affects us today doesn't affect us in the same way tomorrow. So that's what you describe. And I might go down, that slippery slope of being irritated and angry and sometimes you just need to go down that path. But by tomorrow, I'll be over it and on to the next thing.
Well, I know. So for any of you out there who are raising teenagers, I'm done. Yeah. But what I remember, there were a couple times where I was like, terrified, scared, like, where's my kid? What's going on? And I was making all these assumptions that something was wrong or something happened to them. Then they walk in the door and I'm pissed. But instead of being pissed, again, checking myself at the door or checking them at the door. But, it's like, what's going on? I'm glad you're home. I'm glad you're safe. Tell me, let's have a conversation. What happened? And when we approach it with love and curiosity and compassion, then, sure, there may still be some grounding happening, but at least there's some more, there's compassionate communication instead of assumptions and anger and frustration. And
I saw this.
And relief that they came through the door. There's that for sure.
I saw this really cute video of this kid, and it's on a ring cam, and he's bringing home this like drunk teenage girl, and like gets her in the house and shuts the door, and then he turns to the ring and he said, "Hi." He goes like, "Hi, I'm so and so. I'm totally sober. My girlfriend's in the car. I just wanted to make sure she got home safe." And then he goes and gets to the car, and I was like, man, there needs to be more of that kid in the world. That kid is awesome. and also like as a parent, right, you're upset, but also so comforted that like your child made it home safe and alive, and they may have, gone out and gotten a little crazy, but at least they're home and safe and in bed. And I was like, oh.
Yeah. I mean, I know a situation where a couple was out and the parent was very frustrated because they're watching them on the GPS or whatever. And the Uber driver had to go a different route because of construction. And it literally took them 45 minutes extra to get home.
Yeah.
And so once there was the calm down and not assuming that all of a sudden they're out and, whatever, they were able to have a conversation about it and go, okay, that makes sense. Thank you for letting us know. But if we don't create that space, then we're going to be angry and with no real foundation.
And I can imagine that parent, if that kid hadn't turned to the camera and said, "Hey, I'm so-and-so, my girlfriend's in the car, I'm sober," how many assumptions that parent could have made, right? And that kid could have been persona non grata, and it turns out he's, a wonderful human being. So, yeah.
Conscientious.
Mm-hmm.
Lisa, do you have any coaching skills and or competencies that you like to bring
No.
into the?
Just kidding.
Did Dan
Sounds
do
good.
both of his?
The check your assumptions and shut your mouth. Yeah. Or STFU.
STFU, SYFM.
So I have used many times that scaling question 1 to 10. 1 to 10, how was your day? 10 is the best. 1 is the worst. I used it with my 7-year-old grandchild the other day, and I got a better story from her and telling me about her day than I normally would have. So she shared me what was the best about it, and she shared with me about what was not the best about it. So she got into more details at 7, right? In more details of how her day was amazing, and the friends did this and the friends did that. And then conversely, how somebody did this to her that made it bad.
What number did she choose?
7.
7. Okay.
And I'm like, can you tell me about the 7? I did it just the way we would. Tell me about the 7. Well, 7 was, and then she just went off on her own little sharing. And I thought that was really a fun thing. And then I started doing it every day, and she goes like, I'm done. I don't feel like talking. So I'll use it every day.
Gotta find a different question.
Yeah, no, I gotta find a different one.
Sometimes when I am the one answering the scale of 1 to 10, I'll have to qualify if it's a logarithmic scale or like a linear scale, because then like 7 is like okay, and then 8's like that's not really likely, and 10 is like impossible. You never reached a 10 or a 1.
That's what's an interesting thing about the scaling from 1 to 10. Like the way I realized this because they asked me.
Is it a Richter scale? Like who knows?
And there's a studio I go to like every day, or not every. I go to, and they ask you every time you take a class. Let's check in. How are you doing? Scale of 1 to 10. What's going on with you? Which I think is such a cool thing to do at the beginning of a workout class, right? But they literally do that. Every student before we start, they do a check in, see how everybody's doing 1 to 10. I think it's such a cool moment because everybody can share what's going on with them physically, mentally, where they're at, if they're tired, and then it allows the instructors to adjust and give them grace or work with them. And it opens up that conversation and it makes you feel heard and seen. But what I learned in this is that I tend to skew really positive. I tend to always be landing definitely above 5, never been below 5. And when asked this question, typically or 7, 8, 9, right up there.
So really, we should be asking you on a scale of 5 to 10.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. But then I would always be like 9 or 10. And then there are people who like always are sitting like right around 5 or 4, and they never get up to the higher. I found out though, in some of the classes, depending on if somebody gives like an 8 or a 9, they're going to give you harder tricks and work to do. And so like they like skew lower to make it easier on them. I, of course, will still keep it high. I don't care. Push me through the ringer. I'm fine. But it's just like, it was an interesting, it's almost like there's a scaling and this within the scaling. Like you have to ask it several times to find out sort of where people fall. Because for me, somebody who answers 9, like how you doing, 8 or 9, if I said 5, it's probably more cause for alarm. Or something's more wrong because I'm not going to be down that low typically.
Yeah.
But for somebody else, 5 or 6, like Anthony, might be really awesome. Like Anthony's a solid 5 most of the time. I'm a solid 9.
I'm jazzed if it's a 5.
So there's kind of this funny. There is like the way you have to quantify even the scaling at times is interesting too. But
that is. Yeah, that sort of links into assumptions as well.
Hang on. Yeah. True.
But I'll stop there.
The other side of that, of the conversation with my granddaughter, was what could happen to make it a better number. And she got to share with me what she could do different, how, she could practice that.
Grandma could take me to go get ice cream. That would make it better.
I have had the how can you make that better kind of bite me in the butt a little bit. I won't say it bit me in the butt. I won't say that. But I did have it turned back around on me. Like, no, how do you feel about a 7? Is there a way we can make that 7 an 8 or, something like that? Tell me, even if it might have been, tell me about, the 7 and on the scale. And they were like, no, I feel like 7 is good and solid. I don't want it to be better. If I'm more solid in this, then what I'm going to do is set myself up to fail. And like they were like,
I think the question that goes with that scaling is what's your satisfaction with your number?
Yeah.
Find out from them, like, again, not only define it, but how satisfied are you? Is this where you want to be?
Yeah, that's a very good question. Like that. How do we feel about our 7?
Yeah, and because I like to remind them, no judgment here. These are your numbers, not mine, right? What's interesting for me with the question around the scaling is I think it's just another window into different ways to communicate with our loved ones.
Yeah.
Right. So my mother, she came up with the greatest way of asking my kids how their day was. And it was a huge vocabulary word that none of us had ever heard. And she would ask them when she came over to visit or for dinner, tell me something scintillating about your day. And it was so the kids still remember it. They're in their 20s and 30s now, and they still remember the word scintillating because it was like just a twist. I'm like, wait, what? Tell us what? Tell you what? Thank goodness they were curious enough to ask, what does that mean?
Yeah, I know what that word means. I'm not going to tell you guys. But.
My dad would ask me, what have you learned today?
Yeah.
Like, that was his thing. What did you learn today? And that's because he's a big thing. Like when you stop learning, you start dying. So he's always, what did you learn today? What did you learn? What have we learned? What did you learn?
What did you do during recess? Not how was your day? Because they'll say fine, or they'll say okay. But what did you do during recess today? What was your favorite part of the day?
What'd you have for lunch?
Right. Well, I usually knew that one. Well, no, actually, that's not true because they had a share basket in the cafeteria and they traded food.
You have no idea what happens to lunch once they get on campus. You have no clue because
I know now, but
an entire economy of its own.
Dan, I see you.
Yeah, and I wanted what I heard there when you were sharing the idea of the scale of 1 to 10, and do they want to take it to a number? I heard something that threw me back to your first topic. Of how does it serve you, or it was Anthony's, how does it serve you? The idea that I'm good at a 7. If I take this any higher, I'm going to find a way to sabotage myself. How does it serve you to sabotage your higher well-being?
Yeah, true. Yes.
Yeah, you could go there too.
Yeah, start looking for that other shoe.
Because the other shoe's going to
family, and are the family members that we're saying these things to? So non-coaching, are they going to allow us?
No,
to do
and that was not. This was a situation where it was like,
privacy. Yeah, coaching privacy. Sure.
I could not push the ask the how does this serve you in this situation. It was already going south. I was already like, okay, you win. Huh? Like, really, I should ask, how does having this much reaction to a question serve you? But no, I just let it slide. I do have. Lisa, do you have another?
I do.
Oh, okay,
I
good.
do. But I use it in coaching. I can't think of a time I haven't, but I could see it being an everyday part, not every day, in an appropriate way.
Every day is too black and white.
Scaling question with your granddaughter can't be every day. You just learned that.
Yeah. Now, fly
Every
on the wall is watching what you are experiencing or what you have set up, or you can go any direction with that fly on the wall. What is that fly on the wall noticing right now that you didn't notice in our conversation? And that sets up another way to move around the room and have different perspectives that we use as well.
Kind of an external awareness,
Mm-hmm.
kind of bringing it out of self and into observation mode.
And everyone has always had an answer.
Always, Lisa?
Always. Always.
Well, then.
Tell me about always.
They felt the pressure to have an answer.
I think that too, this is one of those like powerful question moments, right? And that fly moving. I as you were sharing, it was like it struck up the thought, like, okay, how do you get someone to switch position? And why don't you stand up and tell me that? Sit down and tell me how you feel.
Yeah, I'm not sure I could use that one with family or friends, but the fly on the wall, noticing the situation.
Go stand by the door and tell me how you feel.
Well, actually, so this ties into the second one I had, which is boundaries,
Yes.
because I have been able to say to a few people in life, I really would love to hear what you have to say. I want to learn from you. I know you're upset. I know you're frustrated. And it doesn't work for me when you yell, when you use that tone of voice, or when you're yelling at me. So would you be willing to change your tone to talk to me the way, to share with me what you want to share? And actually it's been mostly well received, because we both want to hear each other. Right. And this is not my current relationship. It's not my old relationship either. So don't make assumptions. Anyway, but it's just like in life, like whether you're at the grocery store, or whether you're at a rally, people are jazzed up or excited or angry or frustrated or passionate. Right. But it's about helping establish, knowing for you what your boundaries are. How do I want to be talked to? How do I want to be treated? Where am I going to do this? How often am I going to allow this to be the case? What am I willing to listen to? And so a lot of my friends know, and I'm in a different kind of spiritual world where we don't do a lot of complaining. It's really about, where is your hope here? And how can we support each other in that? So we can pin, the boundary is, I'm not going to listen to complaining. With some people, and some people I'll listen to the complaining. But anyways, I just wanted to bring that in because of what Lisa said. I think it's important for us to know, if someone's speaking with us or at us, that we have a boundary, and that we find a loving way to express that boundary so that it doesn't just end the conversation, unless the conversation needs to end for a few minutes, and say, thank you for that. Let's come back in 5 minutes together, because this is not being productive for me. I don't feel safe in this.
I also think one of the wonderful ways that you are setting your boundaries is that you are letting the other party know that you are curious, you want to hear them, and that you aren't dismissing their emotion or what they have to share. But what you're doing is setting rules with how you will receive that information, and how you will receive it in a way that will work for you and isn't going to violate you and your boundaries. And I think that that's so important, right? Is letting that other party know, as you set your boundaries, what you have to share is important. This is not me dismissing you, but I have some rules with how I will receive it. And
some people will still see it as dismissing, because they'll say, well, this is me. This is how I talk. This is how I do it. And so, then we have to figure out what
this is me, and I get tone deaf, or I turn deaf when people yell over a certain octave.
Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put my hearing aids in today. Which unfortunately I'm having to get, but that's another topic.
It's me. I just can't hear you when you're yelling. I think too, another great thing in this space is to, and it's almost like a proactive moment, is asking somebody else what they are willing to or able to receive before you share. And that, because sometimes we don't think about that. We just sort of in certain situations, but there is this extra beat and step we can say with somebody else. Hey, are you in a space that you can talk to me about this? Are you in a space that I can share? Are you in a space that I can vent? Are you in a, you know what I mean? And asking that question, can you receive this, what is going on right now? And letting that other person sort of share that moment. I know this because I've been the person that has overshared and not thought about and learned later, hey, maybe step it back a bit and ask first where other people are at. Instead of just assuming and just
right, that goes with intention, right? What is your intention from this conversation? Is your intention to only blast the other person, or is your intention to do a walking path together to figure out what's going to be both beneficial to both parties, or party more than one?
And we have those moments, Lisa and I certainly do, where we go, I just need to vent. I'm frustrated. I just need to get it out. And then let's be productive once I've gotten it out. And I know I have to be productive. I know I'm being throwing a tantrum. I'm aware, but I just need the tantrum for a minute. And then I will come back. But Lisa and I have a relationship that we know that one another can handle that tantrum moment, right? And if we're in a space where we can't, we both have shared. We both said, I'm emotional today. I'm tired today. Maybe I'm not very good at receiving this or handling this right now because of something that's going on. And that's a beautiful line of communication that Lisa and I have with one another. And I love that, because we are not only able to hold space for that emotion, but we're also able to say, I can't hold space right now. I'm just not probably the best sounding board for this at the moment.
I heard a great, I was at a retreat this weekend. I heard a great question or a great statement, which is, we have that scaling on a 1 to 10. Where are you? Well, people can share with each other. I'm actually at my cup, how it's full or not full, right? My cup is at a 2 right now. So this is not an opportunity. This is not a time for me to be able to do this. But if my cup is at an 8, I got capacity for you. Let's do it.
That's so funny. Right? I thought of it the other way. I'm like,
well, I did too. So
my cup is empty. There's plenty of room, man.
So that's an important piece too, is to qualify what it means for you.
Right. What does it mean?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Yes.
So we're actually out of time. I just looked down and realized that. So I had one last thing, and it was imagine if. So I'm just going to say, imagine if this live was still going, and then we'll take it from there.
But let me add, anybody who's watching now or in the replay, I'd love to know your takeaways from today. Put them in the comments or the chat. Love to see your takeaways.
Just start calling people out. Sue, Robin, Point of Success. Tell us your takeaway right now.
Yeah.
What are your takeaways?
And also, if you're a coach and you've taken our classes or you're coaching, is there a skill we missed? Is there something that we
or anyone in the replay missed? So
yeah, is there a favorite? Favorite skill?
What's your favorite skill that you use
that we didn't
real life?
So share that. We'd love to hear it. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
And I'm going to go ahead and sign us off. Do you have any final thoughts? Anybody? I don't want to cut anybody off. All right. Thank you so much for watching out there. Make sure you all check out Certified Life Coach Institute. We're going to be back next Tuesday at 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time with another live and another awesome coaching topic. Thank you for tuning in. Make sure you like, share, and subscribe, and check out our amazing school. And that's all.
Thank you, Steve.
Bye.
Hey everyone, thanks for tuning into today's episode. Once again, this is brought to you by Certified Life Coach Institute. We're an ICF accredited school who certifies our life coaches in 3-day online intensive courses. In addition to other podcast episodes, feel free to check us out every Tuesday at 4:00 p.m. Pacific Standard Time on YouTube or Facebook for our CLCI Lives, where we get together and discuss various topics that are centered around sharpening your skills so you can become a better certified life coach. For more information, feel free to visit us at CertifiedLifeCoachInstitute.com. Until next time, be well.